Hello, welcome back to Beauty Bee and to another potentially overly thorough review. This time I'm going to be looking at my NYX Ultimate Edit palette in Ash. This is no longer available on the NYX website. However, like most drugstore makeup that gets discontinued, it is still available at a lot of other retailers, including some pretty big mainstream ones like Walmart and Walgreens. I have used this palette 100 plus times. I've definitely formed my opinions about it, but before we get into those, I just wanted to go through a couple more facts. These smaller format Ultimate palettes are listed for $7 on the NYX website. As I was doing my quote-unquote research for this video, I saw prices anywhere from about $6 to about $7.50, so a pretty normal range that you would see for drugstore makeup. There are 6 shades in this palette. 3 of them, this purple, this gray, and this deeper blue, are mattes, and 3 are shimmery. This sort of taupey gold color, the shimmery blue, and then this deeper gray. There are 0.04 ounces or 1.2 grams in each of the shades. I am wearing this palette today. I did film the look and I will try to have it running in silence over here as I talk through how I feel that these different shades perform. Let's start with the mattes. There are 3 mattes in this palette, as we discussed earlier. The best performing of the 3 mattes is this gray. This one feels quite soft to the touch. It blends nicely. I do, however, have a little bit of a problem using this as my sole crease or transition shade because it does have quite a bit of blue to it, and I feel that when you sheer it out, you see a little bit more of that blue coming through, which generally isn't something that I want to see in a shade that I would be trying to sheer out, because that can just look tired, it can look a little bit bruised-like, just not always an ideal shade. The formula on this more red-violet shade as well as this deeper blue are both very dry and they are pretty patchy. I can blend both of them out. I can build both of them up to a nice level of opacity. They are very workable shades, but they're not super easy to use. I don't think that this palette as a whole is particularly beginner friendly, and they are definitely nothing to write home about. If you have similar colors, I do not think that you would gain anything by purchasing this palette and getting these 3 mattes. They really aren't impressive shades. Overall, I think that the 3 shimmers in this palette are a little bit better quality. There are, I think, 3 slightly different formulas among the 3 different shimmery shades. In this lightest shimmer, this ashy shade, it is smooth. It is not super metallic, but it is a very smooth sheen. There are no little glitter particles. Blue, you have a pretty similar base color, but there is just a little bit of glitter in it. I don't think it really translates as glittery on the eyes, but in the pan and in the swatch you can definitely see that there is some glitter to it. And then this deepest shade has quite a bit more glitter, which you can definitely see in the pan, and then there isn't as much base color to this one. This gray has quite a bit more sparkle than the other 2 shimmer shades. It is quite a deep shade and it feels almost rough to the touch, though as you work further into the product I find that it gets a little bit smoother. This is quite chunky. It doesn't apply very smoothly. I can smooth this shade out with my finger and it loses a little bit of the sparkle. There's still quite a bit of shimmer to it when you look up close, but it's not overwhelming. However, I do find that this shade has a little bit of glitter fallout with it. It's nothing insane. It's nothing beyond what I would really expect with any really shimmery shade, especially at a drugstore price point, but it's worth noting. Though you don't see much of the glitter in the blue shade, I think it's worth noting that the color of the shimmer in the two shades is quite similar. In both cases, it's sort of a cool toned, sometimes looks a little bit pink, sometimes looks a little bit blue, but mostly just sort of a colorless glitter. Talking about the palette as a whole, I feel that this really works as a 4-pan blue palette with a red violet and a taupey gold thrown in. I really do not think that you can get a wide variety of looks out of this palette. Everything in here is mid-toned to deep. There really isn't anything that I can use, at least, and I don't think that most people could use to highlight their brow bone or to highlight their inner corner. I think that most people would additionally want to pull in some more transition shades. I mean, these 4 shades, the gray, the 2 blues, and the deeper gray, none of them, at least for me, really work as transition shades because, as I mentioned earlier, they all have quite a bit of blue to them. As you blend them, they can look a little bit bruise-like. This violet is a little bit hard to blend. You can use it as a transition shade or in your crease. I think you can see in the footage of me putting on this look that I have on today that this red violet is a pain to blend, though I do think I got it to a nice point eventually. I am super impressed with this one shade. It's not really a formula thing. I don't think the formula on this taupey gold is anything special, but it's good enough. It definitely gets the job done, but the color on this is super unique to my collection, and I think it is absolutely stunning. This is the best neutral shade that I have come across, period. It is cool toned, but it's this really indeterminate color. It looks a little bit gold, it looks a little bit taupe. It goes with absolutely everything, and I really think that it complements my skin tone and my coloring quite well. I use this, I would say 90% of the time, if I pull this palette for anything. I'll often pull in another one of these shades, but almost always when I use this palette, this shade ends up coming out. I've worn it as a one shadow look many times. I think it's just a beautiful shade, and it's probably one of my favorite eyeshadows in my collection. It's also the only reason that I don't consider this palette a little bit of a letdown. Like I said, all of these other shades are workable, but I don't think there's anything impressive in the rest of this palette, and I certainly do not think that if you don't think this shade will work for you, that you should purchase this palette. This shade is, I think, the only real selling point of the entire palette. If this color scheme appeals to you, there is a 16-pan version of this palette that I think would probably be a better fit for most people. It is in the same format as this Ultimate Utopia palette that I have, and it looks to be either 8 shimmer, 8 mattes, or 9 shimmers, 7 mattes. There was one shade that I think is probably a shimmer based on the pictures that I've seen, but I can't be 100% sure because I've never owned the palettes. 16-pan palette is $12 at Walmart, which I think is a much better deal. It is twice the price, yes, but it also has about twice the amount of product, and it's split among 16 different shades. I have also used this palette 100+ times. In fact, I've used it quite a bit more than I have this Ultimate Edit palette, and you can see I am not in any danger of finishing up any of these shades anytime soon. I wouldn't be concerned of, you know, flying through any of the shades if you were to get the 16 pan version. Additionally, I think that the larger version has a nicer variety of shades. There are some lighter shades, and you also build a little bit on this red violet with some more pinky or mauvey neutrals. There are a couple of other shimmery neutrals that are sort of in this color family. There's one that looks to be a little bit more of a pearl shade, and one that's a little bit cooler toned. That I had purchased the 16 pan palette at that time. I think that the only reason I could see recommending this 6 pan palette is if you essentially want a single of this shade. I think that especially if you can get this on sale or use a coupon and get this down to the $3 to $5 mark, I think that's not unreasonable to get this one shade. I find this shade to be very special and among my favorites in my collection. I think that the price is probably what draws most people to this palette. I mean, it is a cool toned but fairly colorful 6 pan palette at a quite reasonable $6 to $7 price tag. However, I think you can get better quality shadows at the drugstore for cheaper. I think that if you got a Wet n Wild quad, you would probably find that the quality was a little bit better. I think the same could be said for the e.l.f. Bite Size quad. Though this is a very usable palette for me, it's not something that I would recommend, and I think there are definitely better alternatives out there. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. If you like this style of review, I do have another one on this 16 pan palette from NYX, the Ultimate Utopia. I would recommend checking that out if you're interested in the NYX line. Thanks again. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed. Let us know if you have this palette, or especially I'm really interested to hear anyone's opinions on these 16 pan palettes down in the comments below. And I hope I will see you all next time. Bye!